Most of us would agree that we watch Netflix simply because we enjoy the pleasure it brings us. Moreover, we would also agree that having optimal health is beneficial in itself, but also because when we look good, we feel good, and when we feel good, we perform good. Lastly, I'm sure we can agree that we endure the hard work, late nights, and the discipline it takes for the highest paying degrees in our only hope for financial freedom later on. These are the three types of good that Plato presents in Book 2 of the Republic. The first type of good is good for its own sake. The second is good for its own sake and for the benefits. And lastly, the final type of good is only good for its benefits. So if I were to ask you, what category would you place justice in? What would you choose? Plato argues that the general opinion would say that justice is only good for the benefits. For us to know why this is, we need to understand the three main points that Plato presents.
I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty, or give me death.
The cost of victory in the French and Indian War left the British government deeply in debt. So Britain had a great idea. Since the war was fought in the colonies, and they helped fund and provide soldiers, the colonies should pay them back. After British Parliament implemented a series of acts to tax the 13 colonies, the discontent amongst them led to a boycott of British goods. This ultimately was the spark of the American Revolutionary War, and over the course of 8 years, the colonies fought off the strength of the British Navy. For over 150 years, the 13 colonies experienced what they would consider an injustice, unfair rule, and exploitation from an absolute powerhouse. And on July 4, 1776, the Congress unanimously passed the Declaration of Independence, completely severing their ties to British Parliament and establishing themselves as independent sovereign states. And in 1787, the U.S. Constitution was ratified in order to establish justice in the country, the supreme law. This system of checks and balances would be used to separate and eliminate the ability for a person or group of people to become tyrannical, and written within this document outlines that if the government becomes tyrannical, her citizens can overthrow her. This is what justice means to the USA, from suffering an injustice to not becoming strong enough to prevent it from happening again. This is but one example of the nature and origin of justice described in Book 2 of the Republic. Justice lies between doing wrong and avoiding punishment, and suffering wrong without being able to do anything about it. But because this is just an agreement between the strong and the weak, Plato presents a second argument that justice is practiced against a man's will because men innately practice injustice and would if there were no consequences.
Plato tells us a story, a myth really, of a lowly shepherd who discovers a mysterious chasm, and inside of it was a magic ring. When he turned the ring so the setting faced his palm, he became invisible. That night, as he sat with other shepherds around the fire, he started turning the ring and noticed that others, thinking he'd left his place, started talking about him. In actual fact, he was invisible. He wasted no time seducing the queen, and, with her help, murdering the king and seizing power. Even though he committed a grave injustice, he certainly benefited, didn't he?
What would you do if you could do anything you wanted without suffering the consequences? Maybe you'd put on a poncho and hack away at somebody for having a better business card than you. Or maybe you'd eat the entire Shake Shack menu, enjoying every bit of it without gaining a single pound. Plato argues this is how we would act if we lived without law and order. Justice only being good for the benefits means that actually being just isn't worth the trouble. If you can seem just on the surface, you can reap the benefits of a great life. Our nature is to do injustices, but we've only created justice so that we aren't in the crosshairs of another person's more powerful injustice. The unjust man must operate like a skilled professional who knows just what they can or can't do, never attempt the impossible and are able to retrieve any errors they make. He must be able to avoid detection in his wrongdoing, for the man who's found out must be reckoned a poor specimen. Our perfectly unjust man must be perfect in his wickedness. He must be able to commit the greatest crimes perfectly, and at the same time get himself a reputation for the highest probity. Pretty often, a society puts a lot of belief and trust in a public figure or a government for bringing a country out of poverty, increasing prosperity to the masses, and more, only to discover they've publicly lied to us about their private life, personal beliefs, and ulterior motives used to gain absolute positions of power, money, and status, or by people in business promising they're the pioneers of the next best thing since sliced bread, only to discover you're investing in a multi-billion-dollar scam.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey.
But it's not enough only to see what life is like for the perfectly unjust man with the reputation of being just. We have to also examine the life of a perfectly just man with the reputation of being unjust. The just man, the man of true simplicity of character, who wants to be and not seem good. We must not allow him to seem good, for if he does, he will have all the rewards and honors paid to him for his reputation for justice, and we shall not be able to tell whether his motive is love of justice or love of the rewards and honors. No, we must strip him of everything except his justice. Our just man must have the worst reputations for wrongdoing, even though he has done no wrong, so that we can test his justice and see if it weakens in the face of unpopularity and all that goes with it. We shall give him an undeserved and lifelong reputation for wickedness and make him stick to his chosen course until death. They will say the just man will be scourged, tortured, and imprisoned. His eyes will be put out, and after enduring every humiliation, he will be crucified. What does this mean for us? Should we just act on our own selfish desires? Can we do unjust things and still have high integrity? Doing bad things are easier to do, and you wouldn't be alone on this path, a path ironed over from the massive amount of people also doing wrong. Meanwhile, doing what's right is much harder to do, because few do it, and you might feel alone on this path, riddled with humiliation, discipline, and hardship. Doing what's right for its own sake has the potential to mark you as an outcast in a society blinded by injustice, posterity, and temptation. On the other hand, Plato argues that if you're discovered as unjust, you could easily use your resources, strength, or prayer and sacrifices to be forgiven for whatever wrongdoing. So, regardless if we believe in religion or not, we must believe in both, because if we do what's right, we'll avoid the wrath of heaven, but lose the profits of wrongdoing. But if we do wrong, we'll gain the profits. And if we repent enough and strongly defend ourselves, we'll be able to persuade God and man to let us go unpunished. Unless a man is born with some heaven-sent aversion to wrongdoing, or unless he acquires the knowledge to refrain from it, he will never do right of his own free will, but will censure wrongdoing only if cowardice or age or weakness make him powerless to practice it himself. Yo, what is going on, you guys? If you made it to the end, I just want to say thank you so much for watching the entire video. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button. The channel is growing a little bit, and it's actually really exciting to see people enjoy this content that I'm making, because I really do enjoy it as well. So if you want to join this journey with me, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.